Good morning, 7:17 in the morning. It's a Tuesday. It's October 22. I had to look. All right, we had some showers, some rain overnight here in Harlan, Iowa, on the western side of the state. Yeah, about 2/10, but we will take it. We needed it, maybe more on the way, but we'll talk about your weather too. I'm got the whole country covered. We'll even take a sneak peek at Halloween for trick-or-treaters, and we'll keep that updated as we get closer, of course, because, it's weather. Things change. Here's what's going on this morning across the country, watches and warnings. Not a lot happening. In Western Washington, some freeze watches as it system moving in there and cooling things off. A little bit of wind to Wyoming. How odd for them. And a freeze warning for parts of Colorado. Still some flooding issues there down in Florida. Our weather spotlight for today takes us to Chi-Town, Chicago, the city of broad shoulders, the windy city. It will be breezy today, and there's a slight chance for some isolated, widely scattered showers. Now, any showers today unlikely to produce beneficial rainfall. Most locations won't receive measurable precipitation. So this is hit and miss showers today, mostly miss. But those temperatures going down to near seasonal as the low passes by, and then that cooler air filters in behind it with a chance of showers and isolated storms on Thursday. So that's what's happening in Chicago. Today's weather spotlight. Oh, hi, how you doing? So we do have our dying low that brought us the rain showers overnight here in western Iowa. Those showers shift eastward into eastern Iowa, parts of Missouri, into Illinois, and then also up there in northern Minnesota, Wisconsin, and far west Texas, around the Big Bend almost, getting some showers, but otherwise pretty quiet across the country today. Here is that surface, and we see our low in the plains making eastward progress with those showers further east, as we just talked about, and some showers across the northern plains into the Great Lakes. There's your system in the Pacific Northwest with cooler air, some snow possible in the Cascades of Washington, and the Olympics with that freeze watches out for some of those locations in western Washington. Also some snow up there in northwestern Montana. But again, this is a pretty quiet map. Temperature anomalies for today. Well, cooling off a little bit northern plains, so actually slightly below average for North Dakota into Montana and the Northwest. Still well above average for the plains, into the Midwest, into the East. Slightly above average for the Southeast and the Southwest. Those highs, actual highs, look like this. I mean, we're still looking at 80s to near 90 for Texas, Oklahoma 80s. There's still plenty of 80s, and in Kansas there, 70s here, and in Iowa. Thankfully, we'll be cooling off for a couple days, but the Midwest still very warm, 70s to near 80, and those 70s go all the way to the East Coast, and you have to go into northern Maine really to cool off. And temperatures near 80 even for the mid-Atlantic, so warming up from your pleasant 70s. The West is the best, I guess, if you like the cool stuff. That's mostly in the Northwest. Southwest still rather warm. Phoenix and Tucson both above 90. Moving on to tomorrow, here's our surface. There's your cold front moving into the Great Lakes, into the Midwest, into the Central Plains. And our system in the Northwest spreading some light rain, light snow there. And still some showers for Florida, and a little bit of light rain up there in the Northeast too. On the warm side of that front, we're going to change that over time, but not yet. Anomalous temperatures for tomorrow with that front, knocking temperatures down to just single digits above normal for me here in Iowa and also for Minnesota, but near average. Slightly below average for Wisconsin into Michigan, maybe northern Indiana. But on the warm side of the front, still teens above average for the East Coast, single digits above average for the Southeast. Still very warm, Oklahoma, Texas, much of the West. The cool spot really is Oregon, Washington into Idaho with those below temperatures there. Those actual highs there are 50s and even some 40s. For the Northwest, but you get into the plains on the other side of the Rockies and we start to see those temperatures going up 60s and 70s. Now, a little cooler behind that front in the Great Lakes. So we see more 50s here for Minnesota, Wisconsin into Michigan, but you head south and temperatures warm up. Now, pretty pleasant here in Iowa. We'll be back in the 60s. We should be, like for my location, in the upper 50s for this time of year, but we'll be closer to average. Things cooling off a little bit on Wednesday. But Texas still hot, 90s here into the southeast, lots of 80s. So very warm on most of this map. How about 2 days worth of precipitation? What does that look for your rain showers ending on Thursday? Well, Chicago, nothing, really. Those widely scattered hit and miss showers are mostly miss. But further north, northern Great Lakes, picking up a little bit of rain, maybe up to half an inch for some locations, mainly below that. Also into, say, New York State, upstate New York, into Vermont and parts of New Hampshire and Maine, light amounts here. And the Northwest picking up mostly light amounts, again, up to half inch, maybe around Yellowstone. And some of that may fall as snow. As we take a look at our surface for Thursday, maybe some snow for Yellowstone and into parts of Idaho, back into Washington. Scattered storms, scattered showers for the Midwest, upper Midwest, into the Great Lakes. And cooler temperatures for the east for Thursday. You're welcome, but still, close to average, a little bit below average for much of New England and the Northeast, slightly above average for much of the Midwest into the Great Lakes, and then starting to warm back up in the Midwest just one day. Say for Iowa, we're going to warm up real quick and then cool off back closer to average again, but we're going to stay above average the whole time here in Iowa, and then much above average further south into Missouri and back into Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas. And really, the Northwest is the coolest with below average temperatures here, maybe even double digits below average. Those high temperatures in the Northwest, 40s and 50s again. Northern Plains, 50s. Transitioning back into the 70s here in Iowa. So 60s and 70s and then back to the 60s. Kansas 80s to near 90. Oklahoma 90s. Texas 90s Southwest. 80s Southeast. But, cooler in the Northeast. So we do see some 50s, even some 40s here for highs. So a little bit of a break from the heat. Taking a look now at the GFS. We'll get to today. I don't know where I ended up here. We'll get there. All right, so this is this morning. And so our light showers here in Iowa have moved eastward, and they're even lighter. Like I said, we picked up about, not a quarter inch, about 2/10 here, and we will take it. So as we go through this morning, we see a front moving into the Great Lakes with maybe some showers into Wisconsin and Michigan, some cooler air filtering into the northern plains, even the upper Midwest for today. So that's our cool off coming for tomorrow, say for Iowa. But otherwise pretty quiet across the country. So as we get through today into tomorrow now, this is Wednesday morning, you see that cooler air heading into the Great Lakes, into Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota mostly. But that trailing cold front does get through Iowa, even into Missouri. And this cooler air will be spreading east into the Northeast mainly. Not too terribly a far push. I messed that sentence up, but it's not going to push too far south. It's going to head mostly east for a big cool off there. Another system now for the Pacific Northwest. This is Wednesday night. We see some snow forming in eastern Oregon, moving into Idaho, and then into, again, this is Yellowstone, and then parts of southern Montana, the mountains here, getting some pretty decent snows as we get into the early morning Thursday. Fairly quiet, otherwise some light showers, Missouri. And as we continue through Thursday, a few showers now into the upper Midwest. And we'll take that. We have a slight chance of rain in our forecast Thursday. This is Thursday night, mostly eastern Iowa into Illinois and Wisconsin. And then another cold front here moving through Minnesota and the cooler air right along the Canadian border. As we get into Friday, that low moves through Michigan, some storms, maybe some showers for sure, and some cooler air filtering in behind this low for a little bit of a keeping things cool this weekend at least here in the Midwest. Still slightly above average, but cooler than it's been. Some showers here for Friday night, moving into Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, and so just some light scattered showers here in the east. Another Pacific Northwest storm. They're just lining up, and it is that time of year for that to happen for the Pacific Northwest. And so as we get into Saturday morning, we see some rain for Oregon and Washington coasts. A little bit of a few showers here for the mid-Atlantic too. As we get into Sunday now, again, things staying kind of cool for the East Coast with this cool high pressure settling into the Great Lakes, but warming up in between, so warming up for the plains and a little bit breezy. And then staying cool for Iowa Sunday, but starting to warm up, especially as we get into next week. And then we see those showers for the Pacific Northwest. How odd for them this time of year. This gets us to Sunday. And that gets us through the weekend as we get into Monday. Now we're getting close to Halloween here. So, as always, I promise you a sneak peek at Halloween. It's a little far out to have a completely accurate forecast at this point, but at least I want to give you the trends and we'll keep you updated as we go too. So as we get into the 29th here, very cool for the West Coast and some cooler air heading southward here too. And we'll see, kind of a low, kind of a wave forming here. Colorado, some snow in Utah, into Colorado, wishful thinking on my part. Some scattered snow showers for the west. But as we get closer to Halloween, this looks promising. And remember, previous runs of the GFS had this turning into a really strong low, moving through the Dakotas with a almost a blizzard for North Dakota. Well, we haven't seen that on the run for quite a while. And this run has this low just falling apart. So as we get into the 30th, some light snow for Wyoming and windy conditions in the plains, but not much in the way of precipitation. South Dakota, Minnesota just falls apart. But we see some cooler air heading down the west coast. So, the Great Basin getting kind of some cold air here, heading down almost into the desert southwest. This is the 30th. And as we get into Halloween, got another storm moving Pacific Northwest late in the day on the 30th, Halloween Eve. I don't know. And then as we head into Halloween itself, could see some storms busting out. Nebraska, Iowa, South Dakota, Minnesota, into Kansas. This is Halloween morning, Thursday, the 31st. Snow moving into Idaho and also Montana, back into Oregon and Washington. So looks like some decent rains, thunderstorms. I don't know if we'll see severe weather, but it's kind of that time of year for our second severe weather season, so that's possible. As we get into the day, Halloween, snow back in the northwest, so some rain on the coast. And then as we get late in the day, so this will be trick-or-treater time. And remember, this is not an exact forecast because we're kind of far out. So I would watch this whole area here to see if any showers and storms are going to get in the way of going door to door begging for candy, or asking for candy. And then back in the northwest, it's kind of snowy, kind of cold. So I don't know, dress up as a polar bear or something. And then I wanted to show you something else too as we get into November. Could we be looking at a tropical storm, hurricane, something into the southeast? I mean, maybe we'll keep an eye on this as well. All right, let's take a look at our 8 to 14 day temperatures. This is the 29th through November 4th, and we're going to stay warm for the most part, averaging out that period. So the eastern 2/3 of the country, eastern half of the country, with a good chance of being above average. The western third, a good chance of being below average temperature-wise. Precipitation, this is encouraging for many. Certainly in the Midwest here, and into the plains, we need the rain. So there's a decent chance of above average precipitation here. And then back towards the northwest and Florida too. And then the driest probabilities are east central into the northeast. Taking a look at the weekend real quick. Your averages, we're going to be pretty much above average. Most of Texas through the southeast, although not as much above average for, say, West Texas into Kansas, and then into the Midwest. So just slightly above average here in Iowa, into Illinois, Indiana, and actually below average a little bit for the Northeast. But that warmer air coming back into the northern plains, so much above average for Wyoming, Montana, moving into the Dakotas, and the rest of the West a little bit above average as well. Sunday, well, we see much above average moving into the plains again, into the upper Midwest. So, yeah, it's kind of brutal, but cooling off for the Pacific Northwest, and, kind of moving into the southeast above average temperatures. But our east coast cool off moving southward, so below average temperatures all the way down into Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, and up the coast. Taking a look at Halloween real quick again. Our temperatures above and below average, so below average temperatures for the Northwest especially. But, for the western, almost half of the country, slightly below average to much below average. The rest of the country above average, much above average at trick-or-treat time, if this comes exactly true. Illinois, Wisconsin, down into Missouri and Oklahoma, and much of the East Coast. Those actual temperatures at trick-or-treat-ish time, we're widespread 70s from Illinois, Missouri, 80s, Oklahoma into Texas, 70s for the southeast, a lot of 60s and then 50s for the East Coast, even some 40s up there northeast. 40s though, trick-or-treat time for South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, even into parts of Iowa here. So we will be cooling off as a cold front will start going behind this precipitation for Halloween around trick-or-treat time. So watch out for storms. Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, Wisconsin into Minnesota and Michigan. Look out for some snow perhaps in the Northwest, and maybe some storms down there in South Florida. So just kind of a quick peek at Halloween again. We'll keep you updated on those temperatures as we go and how Halloween looks. And of course, the rest of your forecast always through the weekend. And so we'll do it again tomorrow for you right here on the Weather Mic. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.